Harrison Blake slammed the conference room door shut just hard enough to make the windows rattle, not out of anger, but because he was done wasting time. "This retreat is non-negotiable," he said, buttoning his suit jacket as he faced his executive team. "We've lost 3 key developers in 2 months. Morale is tanking. We need something drastic and fast." The room fell silent. No one dared argue with the 36-year-old CEO of Stratagem Tech, a multi-million-dollar software firm that had grown from a basement startup into a tech empire thanks to Harrison's relentless drive and hard-nosed leadership. Find someone to plan it. "I want it off-site, memorable, and not some trust-fall corporate nonsense," he added. "I want real bonding. Fix this team." A week later, Harrison found himself staring at the woman who was about to flip his entire world upside down. She walked into his office with a clipboard, a calm confidence in her posture, and a smile that didn't look like it had to be forced. "Mr. Blake, I'm Juliet Brennan. You hired my company, Elevate Events, to plan your team-building retreat. I came personally because I heard you're a tough one to impress." She wasn't wrong. He'd shot down 5 proposals already, but this one, Juliet, was different. Not just because of the way she looked, with her sun-kissed brown hair pulled into a no-nonsense ponytail, or the way her eyes didn't flinch beneath his stare. It was because she didn't hesitate. She didn't try to flatter him or charm him. She just got straight to business. "I've secured a private estate in Vermont. Secluded, scenic, with enough space for workshops, activities, and downtime. It's 5 days, and I've already prepped an itinerary with flexibility built in." "You're assuming I'll approve it," Harrison said, arching a brow. Juliet shrugged. "I'm assuming you hired me because you're tired of wasting time." He leaned back in his chair, fighting a grin. "Fair enough," she handed him the folder. "Everything's in here. Lodging, meals, team activities. We'll have a private chef, guided hikes, problem-solving workshops, bonfire nights. It's structured but not stuffy." He flipped through the packet. It was good, professional, but what struck him most was how much thought she'd put into it. She'd actually listened to what he wanted. He looked up. "You'll be on site, absolutely. I don't hand off projects like this." "If I'm planning it, I'm seeing it through." Harrison nodded slowly. "All right, let's do it." The estate was more than he expected. Set deep in the Vermont woods, the sprawling property looked like something out of a movie. Tall glass windows, rustic wood beams, a glistening lake out back. His team arrived in waves, most of them wide-eyed and already taking selfies with the scenery. Juliet was everywhere. She checked people in, directed luggage, joked with his employees, and coordinated with the chef like she'd lived there her whole life. Harrison found himself watching her more than he should have. She didn't try to command attention, but she had it anyway. That night over dinner, he sat across from her at the long cedar table. "You really don't miss a detail," he said, lifting his wine glass. Juliet smiled lightly. "Details are everything. People notice when you care. I've been running this company for 10 years. You're the first person I've hired who didn't try to sell me fluff." She met his eyes. "That's because I don't need to impress you. I just need to do my job well." "You're doing more than that," he said without thinking. Juliet blinked, caught off guard for the first time since they'd met. Then she laughed softly. "Careful, Mr. Blake." That almost sounded like a compliment. The days passed in a blur of activities and laughter. His team was opening up in ways he hadn't seen in years. There was competition during the ropes course, deep conversations during group sessions, and stories shared around the fire. Juliet was always in the middle of it, organizing, encouraging, connecting. One afternoon, Harrison found her by the dock, watching the lake with her jeans rolled up and bare feet dipped in the water. "Taking 5 minutes for yourself?" he asked, walking over. She glanced back at him. "Trying to remember what it feels like to just breathe." He sat beside her, slipping off his shoes. "This place does that to you." Juliet turned to him, her voice quieter. "You know, I've planned retreats for tech companies before. None of them cared this much about their people." He glanced at her, surprised. "I care, I just don't always know how to show it." Well, she said with a small smile, you're showing it now. They sat in silence for a while, the wind skimming across the lake. It wasn't romantic, not yet. But something shifted between them, something unspoken. The next night, Juliet stood by the fire pit, handing out marshmallows and laughing with his developers. Harrison watched her from the porch, glass of scotch in hand. She was the last person he expected. He didn't do relationships. His last one ended 3 years ago and left him more guarded than ever. But Juliet wasn't trying to get close. She wasn't chasing him. She was just herself. Honest, capable, warm, and it was messing with his head. Later, after everyone had gone to bed, he found her in the kitchen, packing up leftover snacks. "You're working too hard," he said, leaning against the doorway. Juliet looked up, her hair a little wild from the wind. "Says the man who probably hasn't taken a real vacation in a decade." "Touché," he stepped closer. "You're something else, Juliet." She paused, the air suddenly heavy between them. "Don't say things you don't mean." "I mean it," he said, voice low. "I don't know what this is, but I can't stop thinking about you." Juliet looked at him for a long second. "Harrison." "I know this is bad timing," he murmured, "but I'm not playing games, I don't do that." She closed the cabinet, her voice softer. "Neither do I." He stepped closer. She didn't move back. Their eyes locked, and for a moment, everything else faded: the company, the retreat, the rules he'd built around his heart. Then she whispered, "You don't scare me." And that's when he knew he was in trouble. Because for the first time in years, Harrison Blake wanted something more than control. He wanted her. Juliet didn't sleep that night. She laid in the small guest room tucked at the far end of the estate, staring at the ceiling, replaying Harrison's voice in her head. The way he'd moved closer without demanding anything, the way his voice dropped low, real, vulnerable. She didn't expect that from a man like him. She expected walls, distance, maybe even arrogance, but not honesty, not intensity wrapped in restraint. And definitely not this pull between them that was growing by the hour. By morning, she'd convinced herself to keep things strictly professional. He was her client. This was his retreat. And the way his team was responding: better collaboration, more laughter, fewer guarded tones meant the work mattered. She wasn't about to ruin that. But when she came down to the kitchen just after sunrise, barefoot and still in leggings and a hoodie, she found him leaning over the counter with a mug of coffee, reading the schedule she'd left out the night before. He looked up, caught her eye, and said nothing. She poured herself a cup and sat across from him. "I thought you didn't sleep," he said eventually, not looking up. "I thought you didn't have mornings." "I don't," he replied, "but I couldn't stop thinking." Juliet wrapped her fingers around the mug. "About work, I hope." "No," he said. "About you." She didn't flinch, but her voice lowered. "Harrison, I meant what I said. I'm not here for anything but this retreat." "I know," he said. "And I'm not asking you to change that. I just want to understand why someone like you still works in the background." Juliet tilted her head. "What's that supposed to mean? You're smart. You're organized. You read people better than anyone I've seen. Why aren't you running your own company?" A slow breath left her. "Because I already tried." He set the mug down. "What happened?" Juliet stood and refilled her coffee. "I started a boutique event firm with my sister. We were 6 months in when she got sick, cancer. I shut everything down to take care of her. After she passed, I didn't have it in me to start over, so I freelance now." He didn't speak. He just watched her, eyes unreadable. She faced him again. "I'm not fragile, Harrison. You don't have to tiptoe around me." "I don't," he said. "But I respect what you've survived." Juliet looked away. "People don't usually say that. They just ask when I'm getting back to normal. Maybe because they've never had to lose someone who mattered." That was the first time she realized he wasn't just guessing. He knew. There was a shadow behind his voice, a weight he didn't explain. Before she could ask, one of the developers wandered into the kitchen, yawning and asking about breakfast. Just like that, the moment dissolved. The day passed in a whirlwind of challenges and laughter. Juliet led a blindfolded obstacle course that had everyone tripping and shouting absurd directions. Harrison didn't participate. He stood off to the side, arms crossed, but he watched everything. His eyes weren't on the course. They were on her. That night, a sudden thunderstorm rolled in, drenching the estate and knocking out the power just as dinner was being served. Juliet lit candles without hesitation and gathered everyone into the lounge. "Impromptu storytelling night," she declared, her voice calm over the sound of rain hammering the windows. "You'll thank me later." She sat down in the circle first, launching into a ridiculous tale about planning a wedding where the groom accidentally proposed to the wrong twin. The group howled with laughter. Even Harrison cracked a rare grin from the corner. One by one, people opened up. Funny stories, embarrassing moments, even one tearful confession about burnout and fear of failure. Harrison stayed quiet. After everyone headed to bed, Juliet lingered by the fireplace, adjusting the last few candles. She didn't hear him approach, but she felt it. "That was good," he said behind her, voice low. She turned, candlelight flickering between them. "People want to feel safe before they open up." "All I do is make space for it." "You do more than that," he said. Juliet folded her arms. "You didn't share anything," he hesitated. "I don't usually talk about my past." "I didn't ask about your past, I asked why you didn't share." He looked at the flame in front of him. "Because every time I do, people look at me differently." "I won't," she said quietly. Harrison exhaled slowly. "My father ran stratagem before me. He grew it fast, too fast, made promises he couldn't keep. He died of a heart attack at 49. I took over the next week, cleaned up the mess. Fired people who'd been loyal to him. I didn't have a choice." Juliet didn't move. "I've been proving I'm not him ever since, and sometimes I wonder if everything I built was just me trying to fix the parts of him that broke." Her voice stayed even. "Sounds like you stopped the bleeding." "That's not weakness." His eyes locked onto hers. "You're the first person who said that." The space between them shrank again, but this time she didn't step back. Her fingers brushed against his as she reached for the matchbox. "I'm not afraid of your ghosts, Harrison." His voice dropped. "What are you afraid of?" "Letting someone in who doesn't plan to stay." He didn't answer. Instead, he reached forward and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "I don't do temporary," he said. Juliet's breath caught, then she whispered, "Neither do I." The storm raged outside. But inside, something quieter stirred, undeniable, fragile, and growing stronger by the minute. Juliet stood at the far end of the property the next afternoon, clipboard in hand, watching two of Harrison's senior developers argue over the logistics of a canoe relay race. She didn't intervene. Instead, she let them work it out, taking mental notes as she adjusted the timeline for the evening session. There were only 2 full days left in the retreat, and though the team was far more cohesive than when they arrived, Juliet could feel the clock ticking. She hadn't seen Harrison since the night of the storm. Not really. He'd been around, present at the workshops, eating meals with his team, answering questions, but something had shifted. He watched her from a distance now, quieter, more deliberate. There was no avoidance, but he wasn't seeking her out either, and she hadn't decided whether that made it easier or harder. "Are you always this calm under pressure?" His voice came from behind her, low but steady. Juliet turned, shielding her eyes from the late afternoon glare. "I didn't hear you walk up." "I figured you needed a minute," Harrison said. "You've been running yourself into the ground since breakfast." "I'm not one to do things halfway," she replied. "Neither am I." She hesitated. "Then why have you been avoiding me?" "I haven't," he said, stepping beside her. "I've been thinking." Juliet didn't look at him. "That never ends well." "This time it might." He folded his arms. "You made something happen here. My team is more open today than they've been in years. But I've also realized something else." She waited. "I don't want this to end when we leave Vermont." Juliet turned to him. "You mean the retreat?" "I mean us." Her fingers tightened around the clipboard. "Is there an us, Harrison?" "There could be," he said. "If we don't walk away from it." She studied him, weighing the sincerity in his voice. "You live in New York, I'm based in Boston. You run a company, I have clients booked through December. What are we supposed to do, schedule feelings between meetings?" "Maybe," he said, his tone dry but honest. Or maybe we stop pretending our lives can't adjust. Juliet arched a brow. You're not exactly known for compromise. That's because no one's ever been worth it. Her breath caught, but she recovered quickly. You don't even know if I'm interested in the same thing. His eyes didn't waver. Are you? Juliet said nothing for a long moment. Then she looked away toward the lake. I don't get involved with clients. Then let me fix that, he said. Let me stop being one. She turned back to him, surprised. What are you talking about? I already emailed HR, Harrison said. I told them to handle the remaining logistics. You're done here, Juliet. As far as I'm concerned, your contract's complete. You fired me. I freed you, he said. Now we're just two people standing in a field, no contracts, no boundaries, she blinked. That's the most absurd and strangely romantic thing I've ever heard. I'll take that as a maybe, she laughed, and it startled both of them with how natural it sounded. He stepped closer, and this time she didn't hold back. You really think this could work? She asked, voice softer now. I think I don't want to go another week pretending I don't care what happens to you after this. Juliet's smile faded into something more fragile. You don't exactly have a reputation for trust me, he cut in gently. I know, that's why I'm not making promises. I'm asking for a chance. She studied him, the man who'd built an empire from ashes, who'd quietly carried the weight of a legacy that wasn't his fault, who'd surprised her again and again without even trying. All right, she said finally. You want a chance, then don't just say it. Show me. That night, Harrison didn't eat with the rest of his team. Instead, he waited until the sun went down, then found Juliet by the fire pit again, where she was reviewing final notes for the next morning's debrief. He didn't speak. He just handed her a sleek, square envelope and waited. She looked at it cautiously. What's this? Your next project, he said. Juliet opened it. Inside was a first-class boarding pass. Boston to Santorini, departure in 4 days. Her brows lifted. You're sending me to Greece. I have a villa there, he said. I haven't used it in over a year. I'm taking a sabbatical. 2 weeks, no phones, no meetings, no staff. She stared at him. That's not how CEOs operate. It is now, he replied. And I'm inviting you. Juliet didn't answer right away. Instead, she folded the envelope back and handed it to him. I don't need gifts or gestures, she said evenly. I need someone who will keep showing up, not just when it's beautiful and easy. Harrison closed his fingers around the envelope. Then I'll earn it, not with trips or villas, with consistency. Juliet's voice dropped. Then start with tomorrow, he nodded. I'll be there. And for the first time since the retreat began, Juliet let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't something fleeting. Not a spark destined to burn out, but a fire with enough fuel to last. Because the man standing in front of her wasn't just a CEO anymore. He was someone who wanted her to see the world with him, and not just the beautiful parts. The last morning at the estate arrived wrapped in gold sunlight filtering through wet pine branches, dew clinging to the grass, the lake still and reflective. Juliet stood by the main lodge, clipboard tucked under her arm, watching as Harrison's team gathered for their final session. The transformation was obvious. Tension was gone, replaced by easy laughter and a rhythm that hadn't existed when they'd arrived. She didn't look for Harrison. She didn't have to. He was already there, standing at the edge of the group, arms relaxed at his sides, his eyes on her. But there was no pressure in his gaze, no expectations, just something steady, something real. Juliet cleared her throat. All right, this is it, final session. I want you to take a moment before we start and think about what you're taking back with you, not what you accomplished, not what went wrong. Just what's changed. The group grew quiet, heads bowed, a few eyes welled unexpectedly. She didn't notice Harrison stepping forward until he was beside her, addressing the group without glancing at her once. I came here thinking this retreat was just a solution, a box to check. I didn't expect to be reminded that I work with people, not just titles and roles. And I didn't expect that letting go of control would put things back together. Juliet looked at him then. He still didn't look back. But more than that, he continued, voice even. I didn't expect to meet someone who'd undo everything I thought I knew about what I needed. Now he turned, and their eyes locked. The team remained silent, respectful, watching something unfold that they instinctively understood not to interrupt. Juliet took a breath. "You didn't come here just to fix your company, Harrison. You came here to remember what connection looks like. You just didn't know it." He took a step closer. "I remember now," her voice dropped. "Then don't forget when we leave." "I won't," he said. "But I'm not waiting to prove that to you in Greece." Juliet blinked. "What do you mean?" "I canceled the villa," he said, quiet enough that only she could hear. "I'm not taking 2 weeks off. I'm moving the company's remote structure to hybrid, less burnout, more flexibility." For the team and for me, she wasn't sure she heard him right. "You're changing stratagem's model." "I have to," Harrison said. "Or I'll lose the kind of people who matter, people like you." Juliet stepped back slightly, eyes narrowing with something unreadable. "I'm not your employee." "I know," he said. "But I want you to work with me, not for me. I want to build something new, a division that focuses on corporate wellness, internal culture, retreats, real ones planned by you." "You want to start a new department under stratagem?" she asked, stunned. "No," Harrison said. "I want to fund your company, invest in your vision. You told me once you shut it down for your sister. I think it's time you started again with support this time." Juliet's clipboard slipped from her arm. She didn't pick it up. "You'd fund me." "I'd partner with you," he said. 50-50. You lead creative. I handle operations and capital. We build something that actually changes the culture in companies like mine." Juliet stared at him, breath shallow. "You're serious?" "I haven't been this serious about anything in years." Her voice barely rose above a whisper. "And what about us?" "That doesn't change," he said, "but it gets better when we're not pretending it's temporary." For the first time since they met, Juliet couldn't find words. So she stepped into him and kissed him, not in front of the team, not for show, but just close enough that only he would feel it. Her hands gripped the fabric of his shirt. His arms came around her waist, anchoring her like she was something he'd been reaching for in the dark for years. When they parted, she didn't look away. "Then let's build it, all of it." Harrison smiled, not the polite kind people gave in meetings, but something rare, something vulnerable. "I already bought the domain last night," he said. Juliet laughed, head tipping back as disbelief melted into joy. "Of course you did." They turned back to the group, who had pretended not to notice but were absolutely pretending. Juliet cleared her throat. "Well, that concludes the final session. I guess next time you'll be booking us." Laughter rippled through the team, easy and knowing. As the vans pulled away hours later, Juliet stood beside Harrison on the front porch of the estate, watching the last of the luggage disappear around the bend in the dirt road. She didn't speak until the dust had settled. "It's strange," she said. "Usually I leave these retreats exhausted. But right now, I feel like I could run a marathon." Harrison reached for her hand. "That's what happens when you stop building things alone." The wind picked up, carrying the scent of pine and the faint echo of laughter still lingering in the air. Juliet looked at him, eyes soft but burning with something fierce and new. "I'm in this," she said. "Not because you offered me a business, but because you offered me a life." He leaned in, forehead resting against hers. "Then let's make it one worth remembering." And just like that, everything she'd built for others' connection, restoration, truth was hers now too. Because when the CEO planned his retreat, he never expected the woman who ran it to steal his guarded heart, crack it wide open, and hand him something better than control. Love. And the kind of partnership that didn't just build companies, it built futures. Together. 3 months later, the Manhattan skyline glittered below the floor-to-ceiling windows of the new office perched on the 27th floor of a sleek glass tower in Midtown. Juliet paced slowly across the minimalist space, barefoot on polished concrete floors, holding a steaming mug of herbal tea. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a warm blush across the cityscape. The words Elevate Collective were etched in understated gold above the glass entrance, a name they'd chosen together. Not just a retreat planning firm, but a movement. One focused on reimagining how companies connect their people. Juliet's vision, finally brought to life, with Harrison's backing and belief woven into every brick of it. He appeared behind her in the reflection of the window, adjusting the cuff of his shirt as he approached. "You're up early." "I couldn't sleep," she said, turning to face him. "The first 2 clients signed their contracts last night. I triple-checked the numbers. It's happening." "I never doubted it," he said without pause. Juliet looked around the space again, sleek desks, open layout, soft natural textures, and let herself absorb the moment. "Do you ever stop and let yourself feel proud?" "I do now," he said. "You taught me how." She tilted her head. "I didn't do anything you weren't already capable of." "You did one thing I couldn't," Harrison said, stepping closer. "You pulled me out of neutral. I didn't even realize I'd been driving in circles." Juliet leaned against the window frame, watching him. "You could have built this without me." Stratagem still running like a machine. Your board didn't even blink when you told them about this investment. "They didn't blink because I told them I was staying on as chairman and bringing in someone else to run day to day," he said, her eyes widened. "You're stepping back." "I already did." "Transition's complete," he said. "I wanted to be here, with you, not split between 2 lives." Juliet's voice dropped. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I wanted to make sure I wasn't just doing it for you. I needed to want this life for myself too." "And I do." She reached out and took his hand. "We're not going to be like the others, you know. I've seen what happens when people lose themselves in their own ambition." "Then we don't lose ourselves," Harrison said simply. "We build something that feeds us, not drains us." They walked together into the shared lounge space, where the morning sun now bathed the room in gold. Juliet glanced at the 2 desks pushed side by side near the window overlooking Central Park. "Should we move them apart?" she asked lightly. "Not a chance," he replied. "I like seeing you work." She smiled, then paused. "I've been thinking about something." "Dangerous words," he teased. "I want to host a retreat next quarter, not for clients, for us. For the team we're building, something intentional, no pitch decks, no power plays. Just space to breathe." Harrison considered this. "You want to lead a retreat for the people leading retreats?" "Exactly," he nodded. "Then let's do it, but first, there's something I need to ask you." Juliet's brows lifted. "Is this where you surprise me with another plane ticket?" "No," he said. "It's where I ask you to move in with me," she blinked. "Seriously? I'm done walking you back to your place and wishing I had more time with you. I want coffee with you in the morning. I want to argue about where to put the plants and who left the lights on." Juliet stepped closer until their foreheads touched. "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." She kissed him, slow and deliberate, her hands wrapping around his waist. "Then I'll start packing tonight." That evening, they walked into Harrison's penthouse together. Juliet had been there a few times before, but it felt different now, like crossing a threshold into something permanent. The space was clean-lined and elegant, but she noticed a new woven throw on the couch in her favorite color and a stack of books on the coffee table with her bookmarks inside. "You made space for me," she said quietly. "I made space for us." She walked slowly through the apartment, absorbing the subtle changes, her favorite tea in the cabinet, a drawer in the bathroom filled with her skincare. A framed photo of the team at the Vermont retreat on the credenza. She turned back to him, tears glimmering in her eyes. "You remembered everything." "Every detail," Harrison said, "because you matter, and I'm not going to forget again." Later that night, curled up beside him on the couch, Juliet ran her fingers along the edge of his shirt collar. "What do you think your father would say if he saw all this?" Harrison was quiet for a moment. "I think he'd be surprised, but I also think he'd be proud, not because of the company, but because I finally figured out what matters." Juliet kissed his temple. "You're not him." "You never were." "I know that now," he said, "and I'm grateful." They stayed there in the quiet, the city glowing beyond the windows and a record playing softly in the background. No deadlines, no agendas, just presence. 6 months later, Elevate Collective had grown to a team of 12, with clients across 3 continents. Juliet led creative strategy, while Harrison managed investor relations and long-term growth, allowing her full autonomy in daily operations. They traveled together for every major retreat, blending work and life seamlessly. One crisp fall morning, Juliet stepped onto the rooftop terrace of their Manhattan building, where Harrison had set up a small table, breakfast waiting. She sat down and poured herself coffee, then noticed a small velvet box beside her plate. She looked up at him, heart leaping. "What is this? Open it." Inside was a simple gold band delicately engraved. She looked at him, tears already rising. "I didn't want to plan something big," he said. "You've planned enough. I just wanted this moment. You, me, and the promise that I'm not going anywhere." Juliet stood and crossed to him, eyes never leaving his. "You don't need to ask. I'm going to anyway," Harrison said. "Will you marry me?" She answered with a kiss that said everything. They married the next spring in a quiet ceremony at the same Vermont estate where it all began. Their vows were handwritten, their guests few, no fanfare, just truth, just love. And when they danced beneath a canopy of trees, surrounded by fireflies and people who knew exactly what they'd overcome to get there, Juliet whispered into his ear, "I never thought I'd get here." Harrison held her tighter. "I always knew you would." They built a life not out of perfection but of presence, not out of promises but of proof. And every morning, as the sun rose over the city they'd chosen, they woke beside each other with one shared thought: this was the life they never saw coming. And it was exactly right.